Good morning, everybody. As you're joining there, I'm just going to be chatting. You're very, very welcome to our webinar this morning with our amazing partners, Baxter Storey. We have an amazing partnership with our corporate partners, Baxter Storey. They're very good to us. We hope we're very good to them. They fundraise for us, and we asked them would they mind doing a webinar with us. And this is the amazing webinar that we're now presenting to you with them, with our amazing co-hosts as well. My name is Claire Flynn. And I'm the Mental Health Promotion Coordinator with Mental Health Ireland. We're going to be sharing loads of information with you this morning, but just to give you a little bit of housekeeping, we're going to be here for about an hour. The bones of 45 minutes to an hour. There's going to be a Q&A function, so you can see it on your screen. You'll be able to ask a question, but we won't be answering those until toward the end of the webinar, and hopefully we'll get to all of them. But if we don't, we'll try and answer as many as we can. The webinar is being recorded and it is going to be available later on today on the Mental Health Ireland website. And we also have some resources relating to the webinar that will be available to you, and they'll be available for you to download on the website as well. However, anyone who's registered for this webinar will be automatically sent the resources once the webinar is over as well. But like that, there's a little bit of cooking going on, so you might want to watch the webinar again, the recording later on, if you're trying to make some of the lovely things that we're showing here today. So I just want to introduce you now to my fellow co-presenters. So I'm going to start with Aideen. Aideen, would you like to say hello and just introduce yourself?
Yes, good morning, Claire. Thank you. And thank you, Mental Health Ireland, for this opportunity. It's a pleasure to be here. Um, my role, I'm a registered nutritionist and I specialise in public health and wellbeing.
Beautiful. And thank you so much for being here as well today. I'm so
Oh, my
excited.
pleasure.
Gar, do you want to say hello and say a little bit about yourself?
Hey Claire, how are you? Yeah, I'm Gar Byrne. I'm the head of food for Baxter Storey Ireland and delighted to be here in collaboration with Mental Health Ireland.
Lovely, lovely, lovely to have you here as well. And last but not least, Louise O'Riordan. Louise, do you want to say hello and introduce yourself?
Thanks, Claire. Hi, everyone. I'm Louise. I'm from the people team in Baxter Story Ireland. We're delighted to be on here this morning presenting to you on mental health.
Yes, so now I'm going to start off with just a little bit of a presentation, just some information for everybody. So I'm just going to share my screen and I'm just going to make sure that one of my co-presenters might give me a thumbs up just to let me know that you can actually see that. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Okay, great. So you're very welcome. And just to say, like, this is part of a webinar series. There's our beautiful co-presenters again. This is part of a webinar series. So this is the first one in the month. October is the Mental Health Month. I'll be telling you more about that in a moment. Today's World Mental Health Day, and this is why we're having this webinar on this day. So what we're hoping that we are going to express to you today, to all of our viewers, is to show how food impacts our mental health and our well-being, and we're going to share simple tips to support a healthier mind and body. So hopefully we'll all learn a little bit. Definitely, I think I will anyway. So Mental Health Ireland is where I work, and our mission is to educate, empower, and connect communities where we create a culture where everyone is treated with respect and supported, especially when our mental health is challenged. We have volunteers and associations throughout the country. So you will find one of our development officers or one of our associations or one of our recovery colleges in your area. Go onto our website, you can find the information there. We work from a co-production model, which means that everybody who should be at the table, from the end user to family supporters to people who work in the area, are all part of anything that we design and produce. And we're part of national, European, and international networks. Now, Mental Health Month, as I said, October. So World Mental Health Day is today. It's the 10th of October, and that day is all around raising awareness around mental health and everything that goes with it. We decided to make it a whole month because we always end up being so busy across the month. So we try across our campaign in October, we try to provide information and resources for everybody to promote awareness of mental health and also to give information and resources to people. So this month we have our free webinar series. This is number one, the webinar series. We have 4 others going across the month, and we also have a regular winter wellbeing webinar, which is being presented as well online, and you can get all that information again on our website. Tonight we have a choir event in the complex in Smithstown with some community choirs. There's still tickets available for that on Eventbrite if you want to come along. We're also asking people to fundraise for us this month by Move It. So we're asking people to move for 60 minutes any day in October, every day if you want to, and donate a little bit of money to Mental Health Ireland. You might get your school or your colleagues or your gym team or your Pilates group or your run team to maybe donate that 60 minutes and make some donations. Also, as I said, we have lots of partnerships and collaborations and organizations throughout the country. So there are loads of different events for mental health awareness during Mental Health Month happening throughout the country, and you can find details of something in your area on in our What's on our website as well. So I just wanted to give you everybody an idea of like what exactly is mental health. So because we hear a lot of talk about it, but it is quite complex, like everything else to do with humans, you know what I mean? There's a lot more to it than maybe what we think. So mental health, this is our definition, is an essential part of being human and our overall well-being. It helps us to handle everyday stress, to find purpose and meaning in our lives, to learn new things, to build good relationships and deal with challenges in a healthy way. And it also plays a big role in helping people, families, and communities thrive. And just to break that down a little bit more, the 1, 2, 3 of mental health. So, number 1 of mental health is our relationship with ourselves, our confidence and our self-esteem. As Irish people, we try not to appear overly confident or anything like that, but it is a very, very very, very important part of our overall well-being. When we feel confident, when our self-esteem is high, we're more likely to take on challenges, we're more likely to be able to adapt to challenges, and more likely to be able to get on with the different other challenges that life throws at us. So working on our confidence and self-esteem is a really, really good thing to do. And there's loads of ways that we can do it. And there's loads of resources out there, but a very, very important part of our mental health. The second most important part is our relationship with other people. We all know that if you go out during the day and if you go out in a great mood, and then if someone is cross with you in your day, it's going to put you off nearly for your entire morning, isn't it? So, you know, we want to be surrounded by people who are positive, who believe in us, who support us, and who want the best for us. So we want those lovely positive social interactions and communications. And it might just be, you know, from our family members, our colleagues, the people we work out with, the people we meet every day in our community, the person in the local shop. When we have those lovely positive social interactions, they really boost our mood and they really help us to have positive mental health. And number 3 then is our ability to cope with life's demands using healthy coping mechanisms. Because like I just said, life is just challenging, isn't it? You know, it doesn't matter what age you are, it doesn't matter what anything else that you might have. Life can be incredibly challenging for people. So, you know, being able to deal with those challenges, to be able to get through them, to be able to have the resilience to get through them, that's a very, very important part of that as well. And don't worry if you feel that you don't have any of these positive things or anything in your life. There are ways that you can support yourself and bring them into your life as well. And again, we have loads of information on that as well. But so that's what mental health is, and that's what one of the reasons why we're here today. But now I'm going to pass you over to Aideen, who's now going to help us to learn about how food really affects our mood and how we can use it to support our well-being.
Thank you, Claire. Yes, for the next few minutes, just want to share that ultimately my role as a nutritionist at its core is to help connect the dots between what we eat and how that influences our health and how we feel. So I'll dive into how your everyday food choices can shape your brain chemistry, support your energy, and influence your emotional well-being. So this isn't really thinking like that food is a silver bullet, but it's using food as a tool, a practical tool, a steady foundation that we can build on to feel more balanced and more nourished and more equipped to meet the day. So in this talk, I'll cover what the science says about food and mood, linking it to mood, the key foundations that support your brain and nervous system, gut health and overall wellness, and then how to bring it to life in your own life. So let's begin. So over a half of what we eat today comes from ultra-processed foods. These are designed to be hyper-palatable, convenient, and difficult to stop eating. These foods tap into our brain's hardwired instinct to seek out quick, high-calorie foods, which ultimately is a survival mechanism from our evolutionary past, but they offer little in terms of real nourishment. And this matters because our brain is a living metabolic organ. It builds and repairs itself using what we feed it. So if the building blocks aren't there, such as omega-3 fatty acids, protein, micronutrients, fiber, our whole system begins to struggle. Our neurons fire less efficiently, our hormones become imbalanced, emotional steadiness can all decline. So when life is already challenging, that missing foundation makes it harder to cope. So this isn't about sugar crashes or blaming bad habits. It's about understanding that food is part of the mental health equation, not the whole answer, but a steady foundation we can lean into, especially when life feels overwhelming. So, moving on to the next slide, let's unpack how food actually shapes how we feel. Food isn't just fuel, it's information. It sends signals to our brain, our nervous system, and our gut. It shapes how we think and how we cope. So, looking first at brain chemistry. Our mood is powered by neurotransmitters, our happy hormones, like serotonin and dopamine, and they're made from nutrients. So without the right building blocks, like protein, B vitamins, magnesium, zinc, and iron, our brain can't produce them. And when that happens, mood becomes harder to stabilize, our focus drops, and it takes more effort to just feel okay. So looking at the blood sugar and energy stability, have you ever felt foggy or snappy after skipping lunch or just grabbing toast and a coffee? That's not just bad mood, that's a blood sugar crash. So when we eat meals that are mostly refined carbohydrates or sugars, we spike and we crash. And those crashes show up as irritability, low mood, and emotional exhaustion. So the goal is to balance meals with a mixture of slow releasing carbohydrates, protein, fats, and fiber. And this blend stabilizes our energy. It helps our brain to become more resilient throughout the day. So inflammation, this is a big one. So inflammation, because inflammation is the root of almost every chronic condition, including many mental health disorders. So the issue isn't just seed oils, it's the imbalance in our modern diets. We get too much saturated fats and omega-6 fatty acids and not nearly enough omega-3s. These are the fats that reduce inflammation and support our brain. The ideal ratio of omega-6s to omega-3s are 3:1, but most of us are at 20:1 or worse. So check in with yourself this week. How many times did you eat omega-3 rich foods like oily fish, chia seeds, flax seeds, or walnuts? Most people barely get them in. So without them, our brain membranes are compromised, our neurotransmitters struggle to fire correctly, and our mood becomes unstable. So thinking about the gut-brain axis, your gut isn't just for digestion, it's also our second brain. 95% of our serotonin is made from our gut. So if your gut microbiome is well fed with fiber, colour, prebiotics, fermented foods, it sends stabilizing messages back to our brain. But for most people, we aren't even close to the 30 grams of fiber that we need. Most are getting less than 10 grams. So if our gut is inflamed or undernourished, it can amplify anxiety, irritability, or even trauma responses. And finally, looking at connection. We all know food connects us to our culture, to memories, to each other. So sharing a meal, planting a herb on your windowsill, tasting something from your childhood, these moments ground us. Because when life feels scattered, food can be a simple, powerful way to come back to ourselves. So let's zoom out for a moment. In Ireland and much of the world, we're eating more than ever. Calories are abundant, food is everywhere, but despite all of this access, many of us are still undernourished. Ultra-processed foods now make up over half of the average person's calorie intake. They're fast, they're cheap, they're engineered to hit our cravings, especially when we're stressed or tired. So our biology is essentially doing its best with what it's given in those moments. But the fuel we are reaching for, it's often missing our deeper needs, the nutrients that help us stay focused, stay resilient, and emotional steady. So what shows up instead? Low mood, poor concentration, gut issues, burnout. We are wired, but we're tired. We're constantly in that cycle through highs and crashes. But ultimately, this is not about blame. This is about taking control and starting to notice and slowly shifting back to true nourishment for yourself, to food that actually supports how we want to feel. So moving on to the last point in this is we have to think about small shifts. We've looked at the challenges. We're going to move on to the next slide, and we looked at the challenges. Now let's look and talk about the solutions. The good news is you don't need to overhaul your entire diet to make a difference. Small shifts can go a long way in supporting your brain, your mood, and your energy. So start building meals that combine slow releasing carbohydrates, quality protein, healthy fats, colour, and fibre. These are the 4 anchors of a balanced plate. They steady your blood sugar and fuel your brain. Think about colour and crunch on your plate in particular. Think veggies, fresh herbs, seeds, fermented foods. These all support your gut brain axis and feed your microbiome. So swap smartly with foods on your plate. It's not about banning foods, it's just choosing minimally processed options more often. The goal isn't total perfection. Even adding 1 more handful of greens on your plate, a spoonful of seeds, a protein source to a meal is a total win. You deserve to feel steady and fueled, and food is a key player. So pulling all this together, I've created a nourishment bowl framework that we've covered them. Now that we've covered the foundations, I want to show you what that looks like in real life. So on the next slide, I will show you that this is a lovely nourishment bowl framework that you can use. It's a flexible build it yourself meal that you can bring into your own life. It's not a strict recipe per se, but it's a template that you can copy for yourself when building and balancing your meals. So how does it work? It starts with a base of whole grains, roasted veggies or leafy greens. Then you would add a protein source in, so eggs, oily fish, legumes, tofu, poultry, etc. Then you would layer in the colour and the crunch, the veggies, the herbs, fermented foods, the seeds, and then you would finish with a healthy fat such as avocado, extra virgin olive oil, tahini or nuts. And this type of meal, this nourishes your gut, it supports your stable blood sugar, it fuels your brain, and it gives your body the raw materials that it actually needs to function well, especially under stress. So if that feels a lot to remember, don't worry. I've recorded a short video showing you exactly how to build one of these bowls from scratch, so you can try it at home. That's in the resources that you have available for this call. But I have a different short video to show you, one with more of a simple shift that can make an impact. So yeah, let's take a look. It's just a really quick one.
Hi guys, I am Aideen. I am a nutritionist for Baxter Storey Ireland, and of course we talk about nutrients, but the number 1 nutrient of all time for us, for our health, is water. Remember, hydrate yourself, because ultimately, if you are hydrated enough, you're going to have more mental clarity in order for you to feel well. But if you feel like you would like a fizzy drink, why don't you go for a fizzy drink that comes with some nourishment, with probiotics. It's really good for your gut, help you digest your food instead of a regular soda or a regular fizzy drink. Why don't you try one with a health benefit? So a kefir or a kombucha. This will complement any meal that you're going to eat to help your gut health. And ultimately, we all want to feel better. So the number 1 thing is to think about drinks, and also to think about the hacks that we can do when we're eating to benefit ourselves, to be able to nourish ourselves better. And the fermented drinks like kefir or kombucha is the number 1 way to do that. So cheers, get the water into you, you'll feel the better for it.
Just something small there to add in. But moving on to my final piece is that to think and to wrap this talk up is to just to note that we can't control everything, not in our life, not always in our mental health, or in our lives journey in general. But food is one part that we can work with. It's not a fix-all, but it is definitely a foundation. So when we begin to nourish consistently with balance, with colour, with care, we give our minds the building blocks to feel more steady, more supported and more alive. So take this talk as an invitation to come back to what grounds you, to your plate, your rhythm, your resilience. And I've completely created a complimentary ebooklet to support you today and beyond today. So with key nutrients, simple recipes and practical tips to nourish your mood and mental well-being. So thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm going to pass you on and to the head of food, the lovely Gar. He's going to bring this all to life, and he's put together a lovely video to show you how to build a wholesome meal that supports your mood, your energy and your joy. So thank you.
Thanks, Aidan. All of that was class. Thanks for all the info. I do find personally that some nutritional info goes over my head, but that was really clear and, pardon the pun, very digestible. But all the dishes look gorgeous, especially those eggs on the top of the nourish ball. Nothing like a jammy egg.
Good stuff.
So for my end, I created a stout treacle bread with a butter bean masala. It sounds complicated. It's not one bit complicated. It's basically posh beans on toast. Completely open for interpretation. It's stout. The stout treacle bread itself is an open canvas and more of a delicious vehicle for things that can go on top of, be that simple butter, nice cheese, an egg, some ham, or whatever you fancy. But the whole idea is that it's simple and enjoyable and nourishing. It's 4 dry ingredients, 4 wet ingredients mixed together in a bowl and into the oven. No equipment needed. A small bit of washing up, but that's all part of the fun. And so, Kathy, if you wouldn't mind hitting play in the video for me, please.
Hi, I'm Gar Byrne. I'm the head of food for Baxter Storey, Ireland. And today I'm showing you a very simple recipe of a stout treacle soda. All ingredients that you can pick up in your local supermarket, put together in a bowl, into a loaf tin, and into an oven. Really simple. So I'm taking wholemeal flour, strong flour, and some salt into my large mixing bowl, adding my bicarbonate of soda or bread soda. I'm going to give that a little mix just to incorporate my dry ingredients all together. You just want to give them a good spread out. I'm going to make like a slight well into the center, and then I'm going to start adding my wet ingredients. And my wet ingredients consist of an Irish buttermilk. I have my stout. This is Guinness, but you can use any stout. You can use a 00 or whatever you fancy using. This here is dark treacle and some cold pressed rapeseed oil. That's all going to go into the mix. And very simply, I'm just going to bring that all together. Give it all a good mix around. Make sure that there's no dry spots in any part of the bowl. You can just smell all that treacle, real molassesy, the Guinness, all of the good stuff. It'll start to come together, and what you want is almost the consistency of porridge. And then once you have that mixed together like that, really simple, I'm going to add in a few seeds. So I have pumpkin seed and sunflower seed. I'm going to add a little bit of that into it. And you can put whatever you want in it. You could put walnuts or pecan. You could put feta cheese in. Whatever you want to put into the mix. It's very forgiving. And that is basically it in a nutshell. What I'm going to do now is I have a 2-pound loaf tin. That's just rubbed with some oil and then dusted with some wholemeal flour and a small few porridge oats into the bottom. And you just want to tap out the kind of excess flour so it just kind of coats the sides of the tins. And then I'm going to just very simply drop my mix into the tin, give it a little spread out. And then what you want to do is just give it a little tap. We're going to tap it down so you don't have any air pockets at the bottom. And then I just have a little bit of sesame seed and some porridge oats. Again, you can put whatever you fancy on the top of it. You can go just oat. You could go linseed, chia, whatever you fancy doing over the top of it. And I'm just going to pop that into the oven at 180 degrees for 40 minutes. And after the 40 minutes, I'm going to take it out of the mold and I'm going to go back into the oven for about maybe 5 to 8 minutes. And that's it. So I'm just here at the range now. I'm going to make my masala butter beans. So I'm just going to add my ingredients here. I have a small bit of neutral oil or vegetable oil. Onions, got a little season, nice flaky salt, a bit of black pepper. Just going to give that a little purple. And then I'm going to go with this is just garlic and thyme, my dry spices, which is cumin and paprika, and a little bit of garam masala. And I'm just going to cook them out. Add a touch more oil. You just want to bring out all those aromats. Cook the onions until they're nice and tender. Then I'm going to go in with a little bit of tomato puree. Obviously, everything here is you could pick up from your local shop. You see that a little small cookout. All that smoked paprika and cumin makes it really kind of like earthy and smoky. And I just have some chopped tomatoes and some chopped red pepper. We're going to go in on top with some San Marzano tomatoes. Now I get that a little bit of a flick out with well. I'm going to season again. I want to go in then. I have some pan roasted halloumi. Just diced up halloumi and then fry it in a pan. You want to roast that separately so you can get some nice color on it. Develops flavor. And then finally, I'm going to go in with my butter beans. You don't want to go in too early with the butter beans because they'll end up breaking up. You just want to go in the last kind of minute with the butter beans. And again, just from the shop, any of them will do. You can get some really nice organic ones. a little taste just to see what my seasoning level is like. And that's it. I'm just gonna let that coast along now while I get my poached eggs and my toasted treacle bread together. So I'm just going to take my stout treacle bread and cut up a couple of nice hearty chunks. Now I'm going to give them a little spread of some good Irish butter. I'm just going to give that a good spoon. Nice and smoky and earthy. All of that roast halloumi, the smoked paprika, the cumin, the garlic and the thyme, really nice. And then I just have nice soft poached eggs. I'm just going to give them a little bit of salt. You could do this your way. You could do it with fried eggs or boiled eggs or whatever you fancy doing, or no eggs at all. Will be lovely with some cheese. And I'm just going to give it a little touch of just like a parsley pesto right over the top. Little pop of lemon. And I have a little bit of parsley cress. You can use whatever you want, anything from the garden. You could use chive or whatever you want. Nice and simple. Masala butter beans on toast with a poached egg.
Oh my God, I mean, that's just gorgeous, Gar. Just absolutely gorgeous. I love posh beans and toast. I love it. I love it.
Posh beans on toast. Where would you be without it? But firstly,
Yeah.
I'll just say it never gets easy looking at yourself on screen.
No, it's not easy at all.
But yeah, I'd like to thank Mental Health Ireland for the opportunity to collaborate together and create awareness on minding your mental health and how important the topic that is. And a big thank you also to our partner, Hout Castle Cookery School, and to run you through the thought process behind something as easily as achievable with a few shop-bought ingredients, how enjoyable that process is of mixing the ingredients in a large bowl, putting it into the oven. And I can't describe the joy you feel seeing a loaf of bread rise in the oven and how amazing the smell then that fills your kitchen. So I'd encourage everyone on the call to pick up the ingredients. And to be fair, most of it, it's all shop bought ingredients, but most of it will be in your cupboard at home. Have a go, trust the process, and it's just such a joy mentally and emotionally to pull a loaf of bread out of the oven. Be present with it, like appreciate the note and notice the sounds, the smell, and the feel of real bread. And do it your own way. Put whatever you want on it, and even if it doesn't turn out amazing, I guarantee you'll still have something that'll be delicious. And bear in mind, we live in the best country in the world for butter, and with enough butter on anything, it tastes great. So have some fun with it. Food is meant to be fun, so enjoy it. But thank you, Claire, and thank you again to Mental Health Ireland. I've loved partnering on such an important topic, and I'm delighted now to hand you over to Louise. Louise is going to talk a little bit about how we can rejuvenate our minds using simple, accessible tools to support our minds and bodies. Thank you, Claire. Lovely to be here.
Thanks, Gar. So moving on from what Aideen and Gar spoke about this morning, which I suppose they really focused on ways to nourish your body and how that impacts your mental health and your mind. I'm going to talk a little bit more about simple things that we can do that are very accessible and free. And I suppose we approach this from a people perspective, thinking about our teams. They're very front facing and client facing. So we know having quick, simple ways to give yourself a little bit of a boost to enhance performance is really important. So one of the things that I'm going to discuss around that is the benefits that come with two hacks. First, it's the idea of unplugging or thinking about what you're consuming, to draw a parallel with what Aideen spoke about. And the second one is connecting a little bit more with nature, getting yourself outside into nature. So if we think about everything that we consume on a daily basis from a non-food perspective, so when you sit down in the morning and plug yourself into everything that you need to do your job, and I'd say most people could have possibly even more than what we have on the screen here. Like I thought about things like email, LinkedIn, Instagram, Teams messages, phone calls, all the usual things that we do and use in our daily life. These all have an impact on our capacity for attention and focus. They actually interrupt our directed attention and pull in our unconscious attention so that we reduce down the amount of focus that we have. And bit by bit, when we do this over and over, our capacity for cognitive overload or the danger of this happening becomes a lot higher. So we end up in a kind of a state that we're fatigued. Our brain is very tired from having to process all these inputs all the time on a daily basis. And with cognitive fatigue, unfortunately, comes a really detrimental impact to our mental health. So what we want people to think about doing is reducing down the access that tech and digital streams of communication and imagery and stimulus have to our mental space and our mental sphere. Like if you think about the amount of streams that flow at us on a daily basis and how we literally plug ourselves into things, this is probably the most digitized time that people have lived in the entire history of mankind. And there's a direct kind of impact where you also see it's probably the most difficult time humans have ever experienced when it comes to mental health. And it's no coincidence that those two things are happening at the same time. So if we think about unplugging here, it would mean that we're reducing down the access that all these modes of communication and, apps and email streams have to our personal sphere. So we're giving that a little bit more protection. And in turn, that allows our brains the space to recharge and rejuvenate and come back with much stronger stores of attentional capacity and capacity for performance and directed attention. But it also means that just mentally we feel a lot better. So we're thinking in terms of what are we consuming? Is it like the ultra processed food? Is it hyper palatable, very seductive, hard to put away from? But actually, the benefits of unplugging and switching off from that are massive. The only thing we'd note here is that obviously it takes a little bit of effort to do that. And we'll talk a little bit more about the impact of using effortful activities and harnessing a bit of discipline towards the end here. But if you want a really quick fix, if you don't want to have to put in the effort of unplugging, another quick way of doing that is just simply to step out into nature. So if you think when you move out into nature and what you see when you get outside, the greenery that surrounds you, straight away that starts to have an impact on your mental health and your well-being. And what it actually does is it taps into a phenomenon that has been studied a lot in recent years known as biophilia. So biophilia is our innate desire to connect to life and nature. And there's been a massive amount of work done by this. I think if you're working in a workplace where you've suddenly seen plants and trees and beautiful flowers being popped in there, that's no coincidence as well. It's not just for aesthetics. It's actually because it's been proven to be really impactful and positive for people's mental health to be surrounded by that bit more greenery. And the reason for that is when we get out into nature or when we're in nature, looking at nature surrounded by trees and greenery, it slows down everything. It gives our brain a bit of a break. It actually reduces our heartbeat. It slows our breathing, our stress levels reduce, blood pressure has been shown to drop down. It has a physiological impact on us to be in nature. Part of that is because how our brain processes what we see in nature is very different to how our brain processes imagery on the TV or imagery on our phone. And I know a lot of people will sometimes say, well, when I want to switch off, I sit down and watch TV or I scroll through my phone. But actually, you might think, oh, it's passive, therefore I'm recharging. But actually, your brain is still having to process all those feeds that are coming into it, all the images, the text, the words, the pull on your attention. That all keeps your brain whirring over all the time. If you're out in nature, there's very little pulling on your directed attention other than the greenery. And this has a massive boost to your mental health and your capacity to rejuvenate yourself. It's much more reparative than sitting in front of a screen. And to take that one step further, if we move into the next slide, you just see one big picture of trees. So the interesting thing about trees is when you're outside, they release chemicals called phytoncides, which actually reduce inflammation in human beings' bodies when they breathe that in. So being in nature overall, physically, mentally, has a massive impact on your mental health. The wild thing here when you look into this is you don't even have to always step outside. Just looking at a picture like that reduces down. It will reduce your heart rate, it'll slow your breathing, it'll deactivate a lot of the sections of your brain that would have been on high activity when looking at something different. So that's the level of the impact that nature can have on our mental health. So moving on to a little bit about birdsong. So while we do notice that when we go out into nature, unfortunately, we still tend to have a habit of plugging in the headphones, the earphones, listening to podcasts, music, all those kind of things. So one more point that I wanted to make here is actually, if you're able to just remain unplugged in nature, the benefits are even greater. It's kind of been proven and discussed and studied a little bit that birds singing in an environment where they feel safe, our bodies instinctively recognize that. So we understand that on an evolutionary basis, that if birds are singing, we're in a safe environment. And again, this further enhances our capacity for recharging and coming back with greater stores of attentional focus and directed attention, which means we then perform better. So all those things, like I said, do take a little bit of effort and discipline. I suppose that ties back into what Claire said at the very start of this call when she spoke about the power we have in ourselves to do something that's good for us, and then the motivation and boost that we get when we do something that we know is going to help us. So that means that we get a little dopamine hit and it creates that lovely loop where you know you've done something that benefits you. That benefit is going to increase consistently so long as you keep doing that thing. So your motivation then increases to do that. It's very empowering. So I'm going to leave you with that little thought and hand back over to Claire. Thanks so much.
Well, that's just amazing. I mean, so much information there from everybody on the call today, and I'm going to share a little bit now as well in a minute, and we can have our Q&A. And I just want to remind everybody who's watching, you can throw in your questions to us. We have time at the end to answer any questions. Now, if we get loads of questions, but if you have a question, stick it into the Q&A. We'll do our best to answer it. And I'm just going to show a little bit more to you now, just in terms of our mental health and our well-being, and some tips of how we can look after them. And then we're going to get stuck into those sort of Q's and A's. And I know that I actually have loads of questions actually after all of that. So I'll probably be asking all the questions, but that's fine as well. So, but this just ties in very well to something that in Mental Health Ireland we promote quite a lot, which is the 5 ways to well-being. Now, the 5 ways to well-being are a set of simple actions that anyone can take, but they were created by the New Economics Foundation in 2008. And what they found was that anyone who undertakes these 5 actions regularly, it really helps promote positive mental health and well-being. And some of them are quite simple, or that you probably are already doing them in your life in some way. But just as a reminder anyway, or maybe even there's something there that you think you might like to take on. So the 5 ways to well-being are connect, be active, take notice, keep learning, and give. And I'm just going to give it a very small snapshot of what each of them mean. So the connect is very much about that, like positive social relationships that I spoke to at the beginning of the webinar. Having connections with people, connections with our community. And as Louise is pointing out there, it's, having connections then with maybe the nature around us and our environment as well can be really, really beneficial for us. And it's also important to remember to connect with ourselves, to maybe check in with how we're feeling, how are we doing physically, how are we doing mentally, how are things going for us, and and just to take maybe a little check about where we are with different things. The second one then is be active. We all know all the time now, you know what I mean? We know what we're supposed to be doing. So we're all supposed to try to be as active as we can every day. We're only supposed to be sitting down 4 hours a day for our overall health. I know that I fail at that every day because I have to sit at a desk for my work day, and then maybe I'm in the car, and maybe in the evening, you know what I mean? I'm on the couch or whatever. So trying to get activity in can be really, really important. But it is like everyone is saying here today, it's about doing what you can and what you've got. So trying to get in like a good 20 minutes of activity in whatever way it is. It might be walking around your garden. You might have an opportunity to go for a walk in a local park. You might, be able to go to a class somewhere. Whatever way you can do it, it's whatever you can do within your own environment. But trying to be a little bit active every day is really, really good for us. And then take a notice. Like Gar was speaking to earlier, that process of creating something, whether it's a bread or whether it's your meal, you know what I mean? Doing a sort of a mindful activity like that is really good for us. Mindfulness in and of itself is really, really good as well. And take notice just about taking a moment. We're either, well, I am anyway, in the past, thinking about what I've just done, or I'm planning what I'm going to do next. But trying to be in the present moment, finding a way to be in the present moment is really, really good for us, for our brain, for our mental health. And there's loads of ways of doing it. There's loads of activities that do it. There's mindful activities, and meditation is really, really good. And if we think about the connect, be active, and take notice, we could actually combine all of those if we think about taking a walk in nature. We could go walk with a friend, go for a walk in nature, take notice of the nature that's around us. We're being active and we're connecting them with someone that we like as well. So you could actually get 3 of them in one activity, which is really, really handy. And then keep learning. When we learn new things, it really, really boosts our self-confidence and our self-esteem. And it's really, really good for our brain health as well, particularly as we get older. If we continue to find new ways to learn, new things to do, you'll often find people who are maybe retired trying to learn new languages, or maybe trying a new skill, trying to, to learn a musical instrument or something like that. And one of the reasons that people do that is because it is so, so good for our brain. but also it might be an opportunity to maybe to keep learning about ourselves. What's good for me? What works for me? Like what physical activity can I do? What ways can I connect? What supports me? Who supports me? All those different things. We're always on a learning journey. And, you know, some people say every day is a school day. And if we really start to be active in that, really try and make every day a school day, it's really, really good for us. And then the fifth one is give. Ireland is a nation of volunteers. We are an amazing country for giving our time, our resources, and supporting other people. And I know that Baxter Storey gave their own staff, I think it's 3 paid volunteer days a year, so they can go and volunteer for something that's close to their heart. And we all have different organizations or things that are close to our heart, and we like to give a bit of time to them. And it might be that we're volunteering to be on a board, or we might go and do a marathon or other things like that. But when we do that, it's really, really good for us as well. Again, it boosts our confidence, our self-esteem. It helps us feel connected to our community and the people we're volunteering with. It helps us to connect to ourselves as well. So these are all really, really important things that we can all do for ourselves. So the 5 ways to well-being, just very, very simple, and a very, very simple way of looking after ourselves. Now I'm going to stop sharing there for a minute. So we have a couple of questions in. Okay, so, and I knew it, I said, Gareth, some of the questions will be coming in for you. So we have a little Q&A. So just going to start off with my own, I suppose, that I'd love to know from each of you. Aideen, I'll start with you. Do you have a favorite meal, or do you have a favorite thing that you like to eat? And I'm like going to ask you, Gar and Louise as well, because I love hearing what things. And one of my favorite dinners is just the simplest dinner on the planet, right? But it's just my go-to, particularly if I'm under stress or pressure or time, whatever. But it's a really nourishing meal as well. But I feel and comforting to me anyway. Is sausages, beans, and mashed potato. It's one of the simplest dinners in the world, but it's just I love it. You know what I mean? It's nothing fancy for me. It's not that I don't like fancy food, I do, but you know, but that just tends to be my go-to. Aideen, what do you think? Have you a favorite meal or?
I've started to, I'm not just saying this because it's about the talk today, but I've actually started to love eating meals from bowls, like a nice bowl, and then kind of building it with different colors, different like kind of like the Nourish Bowl framework. That's
Yes.
my ultimate my favorite, because you can put in. It can change, like the proteins can change, the seasonal veg can change, the date it can all change. I just love that, and it has so many compartments to it. So that's my absolute
Yeah.
go-to. Yeah.
Lovely, lovely. And I'm looking forward to trying your recipe for Nourish Bowl when you know this weekend as well. Gar, how about you? I mean, as a chef, I'm sure maybe that's a hard question for you to answer
Not at
potentially,
all.
but no, it isn't. Okay, great.
Not at all. I think just my favorite thing in the world is a cheese sandwich, like a grilled cheese sandwich. So like some good sourdough, some real Irish butter, and a little blend of two or three different cheeses, like a cheddar, a pecorino, and then something else, a mozzarella or whatever you have in the fridge. A couple of cheeses together, and then I would do it all in a pan. I would butter the inside, I would butter the outside, and I would just get it nice and crispy on the inside and the outside. That and a cup of tea on the couch, the best ever. But I think my probably my favorite thing in the entire world is custard. It's like what Aileen said. It's like back to your roots and nostalgia. Like custard is just the greatest thing in the world. Because without
Yes.
custard, you wouldn't have ice cream or anglaise or diplomat or any of those beautiful things. It's just there's so much you can do with it. It's just my favorite thing ever.
Is it? I've a neighbor, a girl I know actually, my hairdresser actually. She makes custard from scratch, and I'm always amazed at her. But she
So
loves
easy.
baking and cooking. She's so talented at it as well. She's many, many talents, but that's one of them. And what about yourself, Louise? Have you a favorite meal,
Um,
dinner, whatever?
Yeah, for me, it's probably lasagna because it's all the process of it. I enjoy it. So I make the bechamel sauce myself. I do the kind of the ragu sauce for the meat myself, and it's the process of doing that. I have a little bit of music on, have my glass of wine. Probably takes me about 2 hours, but by the time I get to the end product, I put so much work into it. It tastes fantastic. So that's
Yeah.
definitely my one. Yeah.
Okay, lovely, lovely. Thank you so much. We have a question for you, Gar. Can the butter bean masala be frozen?
Yeah, of course. That's actually a really good recipe, like for people that batch cook. If you wanted to get a bit done ahead for the week, if you did something on a Sunday, the only thing I would say is like make everything, do it in a big batch, let it simmer away, but don't add the halloumi, because that if you freeze the halloumi, it'll kind of compromise the quality of the cheese. But do every other part of it, put it into small containers, let it go cold first before you freeze it. Put the lids on after it's cold, and then just pop them into the freezer and take them out as you need it. And then you could finish that then, like if you had some feta, or you could put it on top of pasta, or you could put it up on top of like crushed potatoes or whatever. There's so much you could do with it, you know.
Yeah.
Good
Lovely.
batch
Very,
cooking
very
one though,
nice.
yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Aideen, we have a question about intermittent fasting, and the question is, I hear a lot of colleagues talking about intermittent fasting. Does that have an impact on mental health? And I'm not going to ask you to speak to the mental health aspect of it, but from a nutritional perspective, do you have any comment on what about intermittent? I know some people who do it. They might fast, they might not eat they might stop eating at 7 p.m. say, and they mightn't eat again then until 9 a.m. the next morning. So it's a tool that some people use. Have you any comments or from a nutritional perspective?
I think it's an amazing tool to use in general for health, because like we used to go for years feast and famine, that kind of mode. So but the most important thing is like, yes, you're gonna give your body that rest, your digestive system that rest, to like utilize the time that you do eat. So it's like in that small window then to be extra vigilant and be balanced with your meals and get those nutrients in that small window, and then be consistent within that timing. So like you're going to eat at 9, or and then in 12, and then 3, and then stop, or whatever timing that you're doing. But it's just about getting that, teaching your body that it's safe you're going to get fed within that window, and then be consistent about it, and then have that time off. Absolutely, it can work wonders for you if it suits you. And it's all about tuning into yourself as well, and knowing what works for you, and not pushing it just because it's normal. Actually, like listening to yourself and what actually works.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say the same, because food can be incredibly complex and it can have mental health issues attached to it as well, of course. So if anybody is watching this and they have difficulties with that, Body Wise are an amazing organization that can give support around food issues, because food is so important to us. You know what I mean? We all need it. As you said, we need it to nourish our bodies. But it can become incredibly complex, and there's an emotional attachment to it as well, definitely. So anyone who is struggling with that, please do get support with that. And for everyone else, you know what I mean, just to try and stay as healthy as you can. We all want our treats as well, but as you said, Aileen, we want to be able to support our bodies, as well, and our brains and everything else. Um, Louise, there's a question there, the anti-inflammatory benefits of trees. Do they have this, and you might know this, do they have the same benefits if they're indoors, or is it only if you're out in outdoor environments?
So it's specifically trees that release the chemical rather than actual small house plants. So, I mean, depending on the environment you're in, if you do have a small tree, I suppose there are different types of trees that you could fit inside, but it's specifically trees that release that chemical. And the anti-inflammatory is when you breathe in whatever they're releasing in the air. And it helps your immune system as well. So probably more outside than inside. But I mean, if you've got the space to have a small tree in your house, fantastic.
Yes. Exactly. Thank you. Thank you. Is there any particular food that you would tell everyone to avoid completely, Aideen? I'm presuming this is for you as well. In terms of, is there anything we should avoid? Like you spoke about those ultra processed foods, and I don't know if you follow Sophie Morris, so I'm following her religiously now as well, and she's given me great tips in terms of reading ingredients at the back of at the back of something, in terms of comparing what it says in the front of it, a product, and then the ingredients at the back in terms of that comparison. So you speaking about ultra processed foods really brought that back to me as well. I'm presuming that's what you're going to say, but I don't want to say that either. So what is there anything you would tell someone to avoid completely? Well, you're on mute now. Yeah.
I would never really demonize a food. It's not really my task to ever do. My whole goal will be like, if you are going to eat that, that's fine, but you need to then come back to like balance it out then with moderation, but also it's that awareness around the foods that you're eating as well, and how that in a long term can affect you. So I'm not. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna isolate anything. I don't think it's right to do that. But I definitely think. I definitely think that. Bringing it back to the oils, it's that inflammation is the root cause of everything. So if you were to even start with, oils is one of those secret foods that is, you don't see it in your meal. It's there. It's like salt. It's secret, it's silent, but actually the impact that they can both have in your health in beneficial but also negative ways. So it's about, even on the back of the packs, they are designed to keep us hooked. So it's about then taking your power back to I know what that's doing to me. So how do I educate myself or empower myself to actually make also another choice that makes that more balanced, so that I can still enjoy it, but I bring myself back to the foods that actually help me to live a healthy, thriving life, you know.
Last question then. What are the best foods for promoting natural gut health?
Oh, good question. Prebiotics, which is anything that comes from the ground, which is live with enzymes. It's those enzymes that populate our gut to help digest the food, the rest of the food that we eat. So that's prebiotics. Anything like comes like garlic, anything that has been uncooked, particularly like greens, berries, fruits, like fruits and veggies. Really, prebiotics is that. And then secondly would be fermented foods. We all talked about we all know prebiotics, probiotics. That's what it is. It's the prebiotics is the fruit and veggies, and the probiotics is the fermented foods. So this was a way we used to preserve food for years. Was fermenting our cabbage, our foods like that. So we've sauerkraut, kombucha we talked about in the video, fermented foods from yogurt even. There's probiotics in yogurts as well. So probiotics and prebiotics, they're the two focus points for gut health.
Brilliant. Well, look, that's all the time we have for questions. And we're going to be finished up now at just before 11. So thank you very much, Aideen, Gar, and Louise. I mean, it has been absolutely amazing. I've learned a lot, thankfully. And like I said, I'm going to look at doing some of those recipes as well. But look, just to finish up, I'm just going to give everybody some more information as well about what else is going on. So we have workshops in Mental Health Ireland. We have both community and corporate workshops with everybody can engage with. You could see that 3 of our workshops there. 1 is about engage with mental health. 2 is about expanding your toolkit, and 3 is about talking what matters. What we try and aim is that people can walk away with some skills to support them in supporting themselves or other people with their mental health. Now, if you want to scan that QR code there or contact us, info@mentalhealthireland.ie, we'd be very happy to share any information about our workshops in the community. They're free in the community. There is a charge for corporates, but we use that Robin Hood method. What we charge for in corporates, we use to provide free ones in the community. So our next campaign is actually going to be Connect Miss, and I know people will say, don't talk about Christmas yet, but just to let you know that this is coming up. So in December, we will be sharing, in November, December, a hopeful way to promote positive mental health. That time of year is not great for everybody. There are people who do actually struggle with around the Christmas time and everything else that's going on there. So we have some coping at Christmas resources and literature online, which will be available. They are free to everybody. We do ask as well if anyone wants to maybe give a donation to us. We are a charity, as I said earlier, and October is a fundraising month for us as well, and we try to use Connect Us as a fundraiser. You can scan the QR code there if you want to donate. If you've enjoyed this webinar and you'd like to make a donation to Mental Health Ireland, please do. It really helps us to do our work. And then we'll be selling some Christmas gifts, some lovely Christmas gifts and Christmas cards that you can purchase. They support us as well, and then you can share that gift with somebody within your own life. We're going to ask you as well, give us your feedback on this webinar. Scan the QR code that's there, please. They will access our evaluation form. If you give us your feedback on this, it really helps us to continue to improve our offerings. And what I just want to say as well, so we have resources. So anyone who is signed up for the webinar is going to receive that gorgeous book from Aideen, which has the recipes that Gar has in it. It also has the recipe for the Nourish Bowl that you referred to, and loads of other information and that's going to be sent out to you as well. This recording will be available on our website later on today. And the 2 videos, I know there was a bit of a lag with them, and that, but I mean, we were still able to watch them. They'll be available as well. So you can actually watch those again, particularly with Gar's cooking. You might want to watch it back. So they'll be available for you as well. On our website later on today. And if you're watching the recording after today and it's a couple of months later, they should still be on the website as well. So get onto them or give us an email. If you do want to contact me myself, it's info@mentalhealthireland.ie, mental health promotion. And you can get all information about training, about supporting us, about working with us. If you want to be a corporate partner similar to Baxter Storey, we have a great time together, I'm just saying. But there's a shopping list as well. I just want to say that as well in the resources. So all that's left to say, I think, is to say thank you again to Baxter Storey, to Louise, Aideen and Gar, and to Kathy in the background and Leslie in the background who were supporting us in the background. You didn't see them today, but they did great support. Thank you to both of you. So any final words for anybody by your sides, just saying goodbye. Thanks to everybody. No? We're all good?
Yeah, yeah, listen, thank you so much, Claire. That was an absolute pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
no, it
you
was a
so much. Yeah.
pleasure. I mean, it was just a breeze working with you. I love how you treat your teams. I love, you know, the resources you offer to them. I love how they have volunteer days. We actually have some of them volunteering with us tonight at the choral event, which is lovely. You know, you're just an absolute pleasure to work with. But I like but sharing the knowledge you have as well in a format like this with the people who, you know, are looking for information around supporting their mental health, particularly with food, being able to share that knowledge with us. Really, thank you so much for giving that to us today. It is really appreciated. And I look forward to continuing to work with you as we move on.
Thanks, Claire.
Thank you, Claire.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day, and I hope you all enjoyed it, and I will see you all again soon. Thank you.